After they beat me so badly I couldn't stand, the security guard slipped into the room and whispered he'd get me out that same night if I was ready.
My name is Ananya Sharma. I'm 30 years old. I was in the escort business for a little over 4 years. Before any of that, I was just trying to make a living in Mumbai. I worked as a housekeeper at a mid-range hotel near the airport. Nothing fancy. I cleaned rooms, changed sheets, restocked the minibars, dealt with the guests who left messes everywhere. The shift started early. I'd be up at 5, catch the local train with all the other people heading to work, stand the whole way because seats filled up fast. By the time I got to the hotel, my feet already hurt a little. I shared a small room with 2 other girls from different states. We had one fan that worked most of the time and a hot plate we took turns using. I kept my things in a metal trunk under the bed. Extra uniform, a couple of simple kurtas, the notebook where I wrote down every rupee I sent home. That notebook mattered more than anything. Every Sunday, I'd go to the little shop that did money transfers and send what I could. Even if it was only a few thousand rupees, I sent it. I always checked the receipt twice before I left. I used to talk to my younger sister on the phone when the signal was decent. She'd tell me about school, about how our mothers still cooked the same dal every other day, about the neighbors. I never told her how tired I was. I just asked questions and laughed at her stories. She still sounded like a kid. I wanted her to stay that way as long as possible. On my days off, I sometimes walked to the market near the station. I'd buy a small packet of biscuits or a piece of fruit if the prices weren't crazy. Once in a while, I'd sit on a bench and just watch people. Families, couples, old men arguing about cricket, normal stuff. I used to imagine finishing the nursing course I never got to complete. In my head, I still pictured myself in a clean uniform, walking the wards, actually helping people, the way I used to dream about when I was younger. That picture felt far away, but I held on to it. It made the long shifts easier. The hotel work was hard on the body. My back hurt most nights. My hands were dry and cracked from the cleaning chemicals. Some of the supervisors were decent, some weren't. You learned pretty quick who to avoid when they were in a bad mood. Still, it was honest work. I knew exactly what I was earning and where it was going. Every month I calculated how much longer it would take before I could maybe take a short course or at least visit home without feeling like a failure. I didn't go out much. Money was for sending, not spending. Sometimes the other girls invited me to a movie or a cheap dinner, and I'd say yes once in a while so they wouldn't think I was completely closed off. But most evenings I just washed my uniform, ate whatever was left, and lay on my thin mattress listening to the traffic outside. I'd fall asleep thinking about my sister's next exam or whether my mother was sleeping okay. Small things, ordinary things. That was my life. It wasn't easy, but it made sense. I knew who I was in it. The money I sent home never felt like enough after a while. My father's medicine costs kept going up. Every time I called, my mother sounded more tired. She'd say the same things. "He's stable, don't worry." But I could hear it in her voice. Then the moneylender started showing up at the house more often. She tried to keep that from me at first. I only found out because my sister slipped and mentioned the man waiting outside one afternoon. I started taking extra shifts at the hotel whenever they offered them. Double shifts some days. My body paid for it. My lower back ached constantly. Some nights I could barely straighten up after bending over beds all day. I stopped buying even the small things I used to allow myself. No more biscuits from the market, no tea from the stall near the station. Every extra rupee went into the transfer. The roommates noticed I was quieter. One of them asked if everything was okay at home. I just nodded and said it was fine. It wasn't. I lay awake a lot, staring at the ceiling fan, calculating numbers in my head. How much for the medicine this month? How much the interest had grown? How long before they started asking for the house papers or something worse? Then my sister's school fees came due. She needed new books too. My mother tried to handle it alone, but the numbers didn't work. I sent almost my entire salary that month and lived on leftover rice and dal for weeks. The supervisor at the hotel pulled me aside once because I'd been slower than usual. He wasn't mean about it, just said guests were complaining about rooms not being ready on time. I apologized. What else could I do? The loneliness hit harder than I expected. I stopped answering when the other girls invited me out. Talking felt like effort I didn't have. On the phone with my sister, I forced a lighter voice, asked about her classes, told her I was doing okay. She believed me. That part hurt more than anything. I was supposed to be the one making things better, not the one barely holding on. Some mornings I stood in the staff bathroom looking at myself in the mirror and barely recognized the person staring back. Dark circles, shoulders slumped. I still went to work. I still sent the money. But the feeling that I was falling behind, that no matter how hard I worked, it wouldn't be enough, kept growing. Quietly, day after day. I kept looking for other options long after it stopped making sense. I asked about extra work at the hotel, laundry shifts, late-night cleaning, anything. They told me the same thing every time. No openings. I checked with a couple of agencies that hired domestic help for richer families. The pay was barely better, and they wanted references I didn't have. One place said they'd take me if I could start immediately and live in, but the money still wouldn't cover what was owed back home. The moneylender had started talking about the house. My mother tried to hide how scared she was, but my sister told me in a shaky voice one night. That's when the numbers stopped being abstract. If we lost the house, there was nowhere for them to go. I went to a small clinic once and asked if they needed any helper, even unpaid at first, just so I could get my foot in the door toward nursing. They looked at me like I was wasting their time. No certificate, no experience beyond cleaning rooms. I walked out and sat on the steps for a long time. Someone at the hotel mentioned, quietly, that there were other ways to make money in the city. Fast money. The kind that could clear debts in months instead of years. I shut the conversation down. I told myself I'd rather keep scrubbing bathrooms forever than do something like that. Pride is a stubborn thing when it's all you have left. But the calls from home kept coming. My father's condition wasn't improving. The interest kept growing. I started calculating how many more months of hotel work it would take, and the answer was never. I couldn't send enough. I was already skipping meals. My body was breaking down. And every time I pictured my sister having to leave school, or my mother standing outside while strangers took the house, something inside me went quiet. I told myself it would be temporary, just long enough to get them stable. I repeated it until it almost sounded true. The night I finally said yes, I was sitting on my thin mattress with the phone in my hand. The person on the other end was waiting. I opened my mouth twice and closed it again. Then I heard myself say the word. Yes. After that, the room felt different, like I had stepped through a door I couldn't see. They told me to meet a driver at a certain corner near the station at 8. He didn't talk much, just nodded when I got in the back seat and drove toward a quieter part of the city. The building looked like any other mid-rise apartment block. Plain exterior, a small lobby with a security desk, elevators that smelled like floor cleaner. I kept thinking someone would stop me and ask what I was doing there. A woman met me on the 3rd floor. She was older, businesslike, wearing a simple salwar. She looked me up and down once, then handed me a small bag with a clean kurta and told me to change in the bathroom down the hall. Keep it simple, she said. Smile. Don't ask too many questions. He already paid. She gave me a room number and said the client would arrive in 20 minutes. That was the whole explanation. The room was ordinary. 2 chairs, a bed with a plain sheet, a small table with a bottle of water and 2 glasses. The air conditioner hummed loud enough that I could hear it over my own breathing. I sat on the edge of the chair and waited. When he knocked, I opened the door. He was maybe in his 40s, average build, wearing a collared shirt. He smiled like this was normal, said hello, asked if I wanted water. I said no. We sat across from each other for a few minutes. He asked where I was from. I told him Rajasthan. He nodded and said he'd been there once for work. Then the conversation just stopped. Long silence. He looked at his phone. I looked at the floor. He stood up after a while and said we should get comfortable. I remember the sound of the AC more than anything else. When it was over, he went into the bathroom. I stayed where I was, staring at the wall. He came back, put an envelope on the table, and said thank you, like we'd just finished a business meeting. Then he left. I counted the money twice before I put it in my bag. It was more than I made in 2 weeks at the hotel. The woman from earlier was waiting in the hallway. She asked if everything went okay. I nodded. She walked me to the elevator and said the same driver would take me back. On the ride home, I kept the bag under my arm and watched the city lights pass. My hands were steady. That surprised me. I thought they'd be shaking. When the driver dropped me near the station, I walked the rest of the way to the shared room. The other girls were already asleep. I sat on my mattress in the dark with the envelope still in my lap. Something had shifted. I could feel it. The person who left that building wasn't exactly the same one who had walked in. I didn't have words for it yet. I just knew the old version of me, the one who only cleaned rooms and counted every rupee, was already further away than I expected. The money changed everything almost overnight. Within a few months, the family debt was gone. I paid off the moneylender in one transfer and still had enough left to send my mother extra every week. She stopped sounding scared on the phone. My sister got new books and stayed in school. That alone made me keep going. Then the extras started. Clients gave me things without asking. A watch once, a silk scarf, small envelopes of cash, for yourself. I bought better clothes so I wouldn't look out of place. Real brands. Shoes that didn't hurt after one night. I moved out of the shared room into a small furnished flat in a quieter area. The first time I opened the door with my own key, I just stood there. Clean floors, working AC, a real bed. I thought, I can't believe this is my life now. They started taking me to places I only used to clean. Nice restaurants where the staff knew the clients by name. Hotel suites with views of the city. Once a client flew me to Delhi for 2 days. Business class. I had never been on a plane before. The seat was wider than my old mattress. They brought warm towels and real food. I kept looking out the window the whole time, half expecting someone to tell me I didn't belong there. Some nights were just dinner and conversation. Older men who wanted someone to listen while they talked about deals or family problems. I learned to nod at the right times. I overheard things, names of politicians, complaints about business partners, quiet worries about money that didn't match the cars they drove. They spoke like I wasn't really there, like I was furniture that happened to smile. There were strange rules. Never ask personal questions. Always look happy even when you weren't. Certain clients only wanted company at parties, where I stood in the background holding a drink. One man paid me just to sit in his car while he drove around the city for hours, not saying a word. Another wanted me to pretend I was someone else for an evening. Different name, different story. I did it. Each time it felt a little less strange. I started recognizing the same faces at the nicer hotels. Other girls, some younger, some older. We didn't talk much, just small nods in elevators. The drivers all knew the routes. The women who arranged things spoke in short sentences and expected you to understand without questions. Everything moved on timing and money. No one explained the bigger picture. You just learned by watching. Some moments still felt exciting. Walking into a room where everything was expensive and knowing I didn't have to count every rupee. Buying my mother a new phone and hearing her laugh when she figured out how to use video calls. Sending enough that my sister could think about college. Those things kept me saying yes to the next booking. But other nights left a quiet unease. The way some clients looked through me once they were done talking. The casual way they mentioned people who had disappeared from their circles. The locked phones and the drivers who waited outside every door. I told myself it was just the price of the money, temporary. I could stop whenever I wanted. Then one evening, I came back to my flat after a long booking, kicked off the expensive shoes, and realized I hadn't thought about the hotel job in months. The old shared room felt like something that happened to someone else. This, the late nights, the careful smiles, the constant calculating of who was safe and who wasn't, had become the ordinary day. I wasn't living two lives anymore. This one had quietly taken over. The changes crept in so slowly, I almost didn't notice them. At first, I still kept track of the days. Then I stopped. Nights blurred into each other. I'd sleep until 3 in the afternoon, wake up to messages about the next booking, and the cycle would start again. Weekdays and weekends stopped meaning anything. Clients got more particular. Some wanted the same stories every time. Same made-up job, same family background. I learned to switch names without thinking. One week I was a student. Next week I worked in marketing. I deleted every message before I went to sleep. It became automatic, like brushing my teeth. I stopped answering calls from the old hotel girls. They felt like they belonged to a different lifetime. When my sister asked what I did all day, I had a ready answer about office work and late shifts. The lies came out smooth. I didn't even feel guilty after a while. I just needed her to keep believing I was okay. Some men were almost kind. They'd ask about my day and leave extra cash without making a big deal of it. Others talked the entire time about their wives or their businesses and barely looked at me. A few made strange requests that had nothing to do with the usual arrangement. Sit in silence for an hour, read a contract out loud, pretend to be someone from their past. I learned to read the mood in the first 30 seconds, smile if they needed cheerfulness, stay quiet if they wanted quiet. It became a skill I didn't remember learning. The expensive places stopped impressing me. Hotel lobbies all started looking the same. Nice restaurants felt like sets I walked through. I carried cash everywhere and always checked where the exits were, without realizing I was doing it. Once a booking got canceled at the last minute, and the first thing I felt was relief. That surprised me more than anything. Birthdays passed without me, holidays too. My mother would call, and I'd be in a car heading to another hotel. I'd tell her the office was busy. She never pushed. I think she was afraid of the answers. I started forgetting what a normal evening used to feel like. No more sitting on a thin mattress counting rupees. No more shared bathroom with 2 other girls. The flat was quiet, too quiet sometimes. I'd come home, take off the nice clothes, and sit on the edge of the bed staring at nothing. The numbness settled in gradually. Things that used to bother me, awkward silences, cold stares, the way some men spoke about other women, just became part of the background noise. There was a client who always insisted on the same table at the same restaurant. He'd order for both of us and talk about people who owed him favors. Another one made me wait in the lobby for 40 minutes every time, then acted like nothing was wrong. A third asked detailed questions about my real family and then laughed when I gave the fake answers. I smiled through all of it. Smiling had become the default setting. One night, I caught myself rehearsing a story about a work trip while I was still in the elevator. No one had even asked yet. That's when I understood how far I'd gone. The old version of me, the one who cleaned hotel rooms and sent every spare rupee home, felt like a stranger I used to know. This was just life now. The late nights, the careful lies, the constant measuring of every room and every person. I had stopped fighting it. I had almost stopped noticing it. That night started like most of the others. Same driver, same hotel corridor, same quiet instructions from the woman who handled the bookings. The client was one of the regulars, someone the others had warned me about in small ways. Ravi was working security that evening. I'd seen him around for months. He never said much, just watched. A couple of times he'd given me a quick look or a small shake of the head when a certain client was in a bad mood. I never asked why. You learn not to ask. The room felt off from the start. The client was already drinking when I walked in. He talked too loud, then went quiet for long stretches. I did what I always did. Smiled, stayed still, tried not to give him a reason. It didn't matter. Something set him off. I don't even remember the exact words, just the sudden shift in the air, the way the space got smaller. I stopped fighting back a long time ago. Fighting only made it worse. I stayed on the floor after. My legs wouldn't hold me. Everything hurt in that deep, heavy way that tells you something is broken or close to it. Time stretched. I heard the door open and close once, then again. Ravi came in under the excuse of checking the room. He didn't look surprised. He crouched down just long enough to speak so only I could hear. "Tonight, if you want out, I'll get you out." That was all. Then he left like nothing had happened. I lay there not believing it. People said things. They rarely meant them. But later, when the hallway was quiet, he came back. He helped me stand. We took the service stairs. No one stopped us. He had a car waiting near the back exit. I got in without asking where we were going. He drove in silence for a long time, checking the mirrors more than once. He took me to a small house on the edge of the city where some of his relatives lived. They didn't ask questions, just gave me a room and told me to rest. I stayed there for weeks, while the worst of the marks faded enough that I could move without everyone staring. Ravi never went back to that job. I found out later he simply stopped showing up. The outside world kept going the whole time. Traffic, people on their phones, shops opening in the morning. No one knew. No one came looking in a way that mattered. Sitting in that quiet room, barely able to walk at first, I finally understood something I'd been pretending not to see. There was no temporary version of this life. There was no safe way to stay a little longer. The control, the threats about my family, the way they took the phone, none of it was going to loosen. If I went back, there would only be more nights like that one. That was the moment I stopped telling myself I could manage it. Leaving wasn't one clean decision. I tried once before Ravi ever showed up and backed out the same night because the fear hit harder than the bruises. After he got me out, I still spent weeks looking over my shoulder. New phone, new number, then another city entirely. I didn't tell my family the real reason I moved. I just said work. The first ordinary job I took paid almost nothing. Cleaning again, then helping in a small clinic. My hands shook the first time someone raised their voice. Nightmares came most nights. Same hotel corridors, same locked doors. I'd wake up checking the exits in whatever room I was in. Shame sat heavier than the fear. I kept thinking about the years I stayed quiet, the times I stopped fighting back because it only made things worse. That part still sits with me. Money was tight for a long time. I had almost nothing saved that felt clean. Rebuilding meant starting from zero while trying not to look back. I lost the few people who knew pieces of the old life. Some cut contact on their own, others I cut first. Loneliness became the new normal for a while. Trusting anyone felt dangerous. Even simple conversations took effort. I did end up in a support group for a stretch. Sitting in a circle, listening to other women, was the first time the numbness started cracking. Therapy came later, slow and uneven. Some sessions I barely spoke, some I couldn't stop. The guilt never fully left, especially toward my sister. I had protected her from the truth, but I had also stayed in that life longer because of the money she needed. That contradiction still hurts. Ravi and I didn't stay in each other's lives. Our paths just went different ways. I still owe him more than I can say. He risked everything and then disappeared from that world completely. I think about that a lot. Today I work as a junior nurse in another state. The uniform still feels strange some mornings, like it belongs to someone who never left. I help people the way I once dreamed about when I was younger. The work is hard in a clean way. I can sleep most nights now. Not all. The body remembers things the mind tries to file away. I don't tell the full story often. When younger women ask about easy money or short-term solutions, I tell them the same thing every time. I got lucky. Someone pulled me out. Most girls never get that. Don't go in counting on a rescue. Most of the time, it doesn't come.